Part 1. Sunday Fun. Kemerovo, Sunday morning, March 25, 2018. The industrial city deep in Siberia was covered with a gray sky as heavy as a metal plate, reflecting the smokestacks still belching out the steady breath of coal plants. The snow had been on the ground for too long, stained with coal dust from trains and furnaces, leaving every roadside step and windowsill covered in an old gray. The temperature outside was about -15 degrees Celsius. The cold penetrated thick coats, crept into wrists, between fingers, and straight down the spine. But people were still out in larger numbers than on any other Sunday because Winter Cherry, a 4-story boxy building on Savetsky Avenue with a red sign Simnyaya Vishnya, was a rare refuge from the cold, as hard as glass. Some old people still remembered that this place used to be a chocolate factory in Soviet times. Most young people know this as a shopping complex with supermarkets, cinemas, amusement parks, bowling alleys, fast food restaurants. For Kemerovo, it is a little Moscow on the snowy Siberian floor. The parking lot is packed with cars from old Lotus to shiny sedans. The breath of pedestrians turns white smoke into the air. Through the turnstiles, warmth embraces visitors. The smell of espresso, baked goods, frying oil, mixed with the plastic smell of newly opened stalls. The lights are not flickering but steady. The clean tile floor reflects the shadows of people. For a second, the cold outside belongs to another world. The structure is familiar. First floor supermarket and shops. Second floor fast food, cafes. Third floor bowling, games. Fourth floor children's play area and cinema complex. More than 1,500 people are present. Families with small children, couples holding hands, groups of half-joking, half-serious teenagers, and an elementary school class eagerly lining up to go to Cinema Number 2 to see Sherlock Gnomes. On the fourth floor, the playground resembles a colorful asteroid, a soft red slide, a blue-yellow-red ball pool, a trampoline, a foam-covered wall. Parents stand nearby, watching their children while scrolling through their phones, occasionally bending down to take pictures. In the theater, the sound of popcorn popping is heard. Children hold cups of soda as big as their arms. A default sense of safety covers everything. There is security, there is an exit, there is a fire alarm. No one carries the worst-case scenario in their head in a place that seems modern standard like this. A young mother holds the hands of her 2 children, a 7-year-old girl with a blue bow, a 10-year-old boy with glasses whispering about the pizza they will order after the movie. A father carries his teenage daughter's jacket, promising to let her into the game area when the show ends. The elementary school teacher quickly calls attendance in front of the theater door, instructing, "When the movie is over, stand up and follow me. Don't separate from the group." The joy is peaceful, without a trace of alertness like any real Sunday. They didn't know that behind the clean glass was an old technical body. The wires were stretched like spider webs, the plastic shells were cracked, the sockets were wrinkled because of the heavy load. The fire alarm system had wrongly sounded so much that it was turned off to calm things down. Sprinklers were installed to meet the requirements, but the pumps were never connected. Many fire exits were locked, divided by curtained, divided by stuffed, because of loss of goods. Those safety valves on paper had been turned to 0 before the fire even started. Part 2. The detonator. Around 16. The hallway near the 4th floor playground. Behind a vending machine diligently dispensing water, an old wire was overloaded. The plastic covering had long since cracked at the fold behind the panel. The spark clicked a small sound like a snap of fingers at a crowded party, but enough to melt the plastic. The hot plastic touched the polyurethane foam hanging from the ceiling, a favorite material for fire. The first thin white smoke resembled the warmth of a kettle. A parent frowned. "Smells like burnt plastic," then ignored it. The janitor glanced at it, muttered hot wire again. And no one activated the fire alarm. The alarm had been turned off for months to save time. A warning mechanism was removed from the building's body, leaving a false calm. In a few dozen seconds, white smoke gray. Foam ignited as if soaked in gasoline. The foam surface swelled, flames crawling across the ceiling like a red curtain being pulled. Anything plastic-based ceiling panels, wall coverings, toys fueled the fire instead of stopping it. The mixture of CO plus HCN gas released silently. It wasn't just smoke, it was a biochemical sledgehammer hitting the nervous system and blood. The fatal turning point, the air conditioning system. Intended to circulate warm air in the winter, it sucked smoke from the fire point and blew it into the hallways divided by rooms. Instead of containing it, the building turned itself into a central smoke generator. Within minutes, the fourth floor was dark. The third floor was dark. There were what ifs. If the bell was still working, if the fire alarm was still being heard, if the exit door was unlocked, if the sprinkler had been switched on. But all of those what ifs had been broken before Sunday. A spark that would have required only a CO2 tank to extinguish was given the authority to be upgraded to a national disaster. Part 3. Fire spread. The playground melted. The red slides softened like wax. The ball pool exploded with a pop like corn kernels. The foam sheet fell in drops of fire. The temperature of the fire zone soared to is greater than 600 degrees Celsius. Oxygen dropped rapidly. People standing nearby went from coughing to fainting in just a minute or two. In theater number 2, Sherlock gnomes were still laughing on the screen. Outside the door, black smoke was seeping like a snake. The teacher stood up. "Follow me!" The side door was locked. The main door opened onto a dark hallway. The smoke hit her in the face, forcing her to close it. The theater turned into a sealed box with a smoke leak. Level 3, bowling alley. The lighting system went out. The screams drowned out the game music. A group of young people who were laughing and joking at first started to lose their bearings. They ran after others navigating by the crowd. Level 2. Customers holding food trays climbed the stairs. Some turned back to look for their bags divided by coats and couldn't find their way back out. Ground floor camera room. The screen went from a few blurred lines to a uniform gray-black. A security guard reached out to press the alarm. Another waved. "Don't. It's wrong." It was the same last time. 30 seconds were lost in denial inertia, exactly 30 seconds that many people didn't have. Desperate decisions. A father smashed the office window, put his daughter on the sill. "Jump!" The child slid down the canopy, still alive. He was half trapped. The fire from behind pulled him out of the window frame. In another corner, a mother soaked a towel with soda to cover her child's mouth. The child survived. The mother stopped breathing before the rescue team opened the door. Outside the parking lot, survivors stood shivering in the snow, their eyes glued to the building spewing smoke like a volcano. They heard the sound of breaking glass calling names from the fourth floor. Some climbed the canopy, arms outstretched. "Jump!" Some had broken legs but lived. Some were motionless on the red snow. No sirens, no sprinklers, no instructions. Only smoke, fire, screams. A witness. "As soon as the bell rang, we ran." But everything was silent. Bar TV cows. The electricity went out. All the neon signs, advertising screens, and cinema light boxes died in a heartbeat. The remaining light was a red glow reflecting from the fires in the hallway, and a few flickering emergency lights that seemed about to go out. Thick black smoke covered the ceiling, then lowered, turning the hallway into a tunnel without direction. People raised their hands in front of their faces, unable to see their fingers. The sounds of shattering, the creaking of metal, the long crack of cracked glass, the sobbing of children, the sound of adults coughing, turning into gasping sounds. Each breath felt like a knife cutting through the throat. Some people gagged from HCN, their heads dizzy as if they were motion sick, their legs wobbling. The flow of people was spontaneous. No loudspeaker, no coordinator. The crowd followed the crowd, a blind momentum. Whoever fell would become an obstacle. Whoever stood in the middle of the crowd on the stairs would be pressed against the handrail, unable to raise their hands to cover their mouths. At the landing, when the person in front collapsed from lack of oxygen, the person behind them, unaware, pressed forward. The wall of bodies formed in a few minutes. A young man hugged his girlfriend's wet coat and covered her nose, shouting, "Get down!" They crawled along the wall, groping around the hot technical boxes, accidentally missing a curtained exit door just a few steps away. Someone's arm touched the metal handle under the curtain, turned it hard. The pounding on the door was like a panic drum, then gradually faded. In theater number 2, the teacher still gathered the children in a corner sheltered from the wind, spread a thin layer of coat on the wooden floor, and taught them to breathe slowly. Breathe in through your nose, breathe out through your mouth, cover with a towel. A little boy asked, "Where's your mother?" She only said, "In a moment, dear." When smoke swept through the crack in the door again, she hugged the 3 children to her chest, leaning her back against the wall for them to rest their heads on. A few hours later, the demolition team found the same position. On the 3rd floor, the game area gradually emptied. The arcade machines were still running, the lights flashing meaninglessly. A young man hit his back against the wall in shock, fumbling in his pockets for a surgical mask nun. His friend pulled him away. Ahead of them, the mechanical door was slightly open, the wind sucking smoke in like a wind tunnel. They rushed after him, stuck at the end by the fire door. The smoke was thicker there. Outside, the snow was still falling thinly. The first to escape stood rooted to the spot, watching the building exhale smoke. A man quickly wrote down his license plate number on a cardboard, held it up high. "Bring the person down, I'll take him." 2 others lined up their shirts on the roof to support the jumper. At the edge of the roof, a girl stood trembling, her eyes fixed on the parking lot. "Jump!" someone shouted. She closed her eyes, stepped. The sound of hitting the muffled snow pile, groaning. She was alive. Firemen arrived. Masks, axes, fire hoses. The main door was open. Smoke was pouring like a blast furnace. They split into teams to climb the roof, breaking through the outer wall. Another team groped along the handrails of the stairs. An officer banged on the steel door of the theater. "Do you hear that?" Inside was quiet. They cut the hinges. Smoke rushed out, swallowing the entire corridor. 30 minutes mark. Most of the victims had suffocated. 40 minutes mark. The remaining survivors were concentrated in rooms with windows or any ventilation holes. 60 minutes mark. The rescue team began counting the bodies in clusters of rooms. The chaos ended in silence, the kind of silence that only allowed the sound of hot beams breaking and cooling to be heard. Part V, dead door. The diagram on the wall had many green arrows: exit, reality, curtains, cupboards, locks. Security had long kept the doors locked to prevent escape. Where was the key when needed? In the security room? Where was the security room? Ground floor. Was there smoke on the ground floor? Yes. At one exit, a woman shoulder deep slammed into a door, her fingers bleeding from trying to turn the handle. As she collapsed, she pushed her son toward a nearby window. "Get out!" The boy slipped through the narrow frame, scratching his forehead, but escaped. Several bodies were found right in front of the door. The doorknobs were shiny with sweat and blood. Firefighters had to pry the stiff fingers apart to open the way. "They were standing exactly one lock turn away from freedom," said one soldier. Theater number 2 was the most painful picture. The side door was locked. The main door opened onto the chimney corridor. Children huddled in a low corner, their heads leaning against each other, instinctively saving their breath. Some were clutching a scorched popcorn bag. When the door was broken, the position was almost intact, like the frozen classroom photo. Playground. In the ball pit, the colors had turned ash. There were still small hands holding the discolored ball. The mom, someone once heard, was drowned in the smoke, now a leaden silence. The staircase. A wall of people. Bodies piled on top of each other, pressed to the landing. The person below, kneeling, still holding the handrails reflexively. On the tile floor, black streaks of melted shoe plastic when exposed to heat. The door to death is not a door. It is a system where each small decision, closing the curtains, locking the lock, stuffing the cabinets, adds up to a collective sentence. Part VI. The number of casualties. When the fire subsided, only the charred walls remained, the collapsed roof, the ash-strewn floor, the cables like the inside of the building sticking out black. The smell of plastic, smoke, and skin mixed together, haunting the snowy area around the building. The final count: 60 dead, 37 children. More than 70 injured, many with long-term lung damage. The number is not large in the scale of natural disasters, but for a city of 500,000 people, and especially for the age structure of the victims, it is a tear in faith. The gymnasium turned into a makeshift morgue. White plastic bags lined up. Stretchers covered with gray blankets ran parallel under the cold lights. Identification was difficult. Many bodies were deformed. Relatives recognized their children by their shoes, hairpins, and scorched backpacks. A mother hugged her backpack and screamed, "Why did my child die because of a locked door?" Those who escaped could not escape their memories. A boy said, "My mother pushed me through the glass, then disappeared in the smoke." A father who lost his wife and 2 daughters stood before the ashes. "We took our children to the theater. They gave us back the ashes." Flowers, candles, and stuffed animals covered the square. On the white snow, 37 pairs of small shoes lined up. The press published a photo of a smiling classroom before Sunday. Under the photo was the caption, "No child returned." The number, here, is not insensitive. It goes with the image, and that image goes straight into the public consciousness. Part 7 Investigation. On March 26, the Federal Investigation Commission opened an urgent file. The scene was divided into lots, and burned electrical wires, pieces of foam, and outlets were seized. The preliminary report exposed the safety chain. Fire alarm, turned off for months because it often rang wrongly. Sprinkler, installed for show, pump not connected. Exit door, systematically locked, divided by covered, divided by blocked. Security was ordered to keep it locked because of loss. Fire safety certificate, expired or illegally renewed, hidden through the back door. Staff training, lacking, drills on paper. A fire officer said bluntly, "If the alarm rang, the door opened, the sprinkler sprayed water, we would not have pulled out 60 bodies." The suspects were revealed one by one. The center director, the security chief, the maintenance staff, the licensing official. Images of handcuffs were shown on TV. The crowd was jubilant, asking, "Why wait for 60 people?" Anger spread across the country. Number Kemerovo covered social media. Banners. "We did not die from fire, we died from lies." At Kemerovo Square, people demanded to see the governor. The chants, "Resign!" A father pointed out, "My daughter died because the door was locked. That is murder." On March 27, the president visited the scene, said, "It is not a war or a natural disaster. It is contempt and crime of humanity." Ordered a nationwide inspection. The trial. The courtroom was filled with portraits of children. The verdicts fell. Safety violations causing mass deaths. Criminal responsibility for blocking the exit. Cover-up and forgery. A father wept. "You killed my child with lies, and lies are more dangerous than fire." The curtain rose across the country. Cross-examination revealed hundreds of similar failures: locked doors, dead bells, muted sprinklers. Social question: how many more winter cherries? Inspection campaign: temporarily closing hundreds of establishments, recording thousands of violations, demanding renovation divided by demolition of buildings that cannot be met. Residents admit that such a drastic move is rare, but the harsh phrase still resonates. If there were not 60 deaths. Investigation conclusion: direct cause electrical short circuit in the amusement park, indirect system depriving safety due to greed, negligence, cover-up. Crime: violating safety regulations with particularly serious consequences. Final message of the Ministry of Emergency Situations press conference: laws cannot be on paper. Safety must be practiced every day. Part V8 Heritage. A collective wound does not heal with time. It is wrapped in ritual: flowers, candles, teddy bears, white balloons, every March 25th. In Kemerovo, the memorial is inscribed, "Please forgive us for not saving in time." New classes are brought to the memorial. The teacher shows the students the exit sign of the temporary square itself. Immediate reforms go from recommendations to obligations. Mandatory sprinklers, pump connection, and periodic testing. Cross-checked logs. Fire alarms. Prohibited to turn off. Criminal penalties for intentionally disabling. Exit doors. Open only outwards. No locks of any kind. Seal sensors to monitor open divided by closed status. Exit lights plus backup power for at least 120 minutes. Firefighting drills, at least twice a year. Guards are criminally liable if they do not open the exit when the alarm sounds. Surprise inspectors have the right to immediately close down violating establishments. The impact of new habits is a deep legacy. People enter cinemas, supermarkets, instinctively looking for where the exit is. Parents teach their children, if there is an accident, go this way. Fire alarms are no longer considered a nuisance. Internationally, the incident is included in risk curricula. The winter cherry lesson comes with 3 key sentences. Safety is not a form of decoration. Fire alarms are not noises, they are the breathing of the building. Exits are the way to life, not anti-theft gates. But the empty spaces in the bedrooms of 37 families are never filled. Burned school bags, unfinished classroom photos, toys no longer played with all remind that carelessness kills faster than fire. And then the only question left, one that anyone can memorize in 3 seconds but can save lives. Where is the nearest exit? Ask while the lights are still on, the music is still playing, your hands are still warm. Because in the silence of the death knell, that question is the line between return and nothing.